Hello everyone, welcome to another video tutorial in this series about implementing domain-driven design within your Flutter applications. We are at the point now where we'll be creating our UI, and as you can see here, this is what it will look like. So it's a very simple UI, just a shelf with some books and the ability to add more books. As you see here, I can add a book with the title, the author, and so forth. So let us get into creating this tutorial. There are a few dependencies or assets that are necessary for this tutorial, and you can download them from the GitHub repository. These assets are this add book image. There is also a book image or a neutral book image, and also the shelf image. So once you guys download that and add it under the assets tab of your PubSpec YAML file, then we'll be ready to go. And so I'll jump right into our presentation layer, and I'll now create a folder called UI. And in that folder, I first gonna create the book widget. That is the widget that represents a single book on the shelf. So I'll create a folder called widgets, and within that folder, I'll create the book widget. So I'll create this book widget, which is a stateless widget. So I'll scaffold out. So in order for us to see what we are creating, I'm just gonna go inside my main, and I'm gonna get rid of all of these quickly. So just get rid of all these comments. Don't really need a theme. And for a home page, for now I'm just gonna say book widget. My virtual library. And I'm just gonna delete all of this home page. So now I'm working with that. I'm gonna quickly load up the simulator. So there we have a blank or black screen, because right now our bookshelf is just an empty container. So we're gonna create our book rather than bookshelf, or book widget. So we're gonna create our book widget, and because it's a stateless widget, we must pass in the book, which data will be rendered or represented by this widget. So we pass in a book into the constructor. So I say this book, and then I will build out the widget, which is pretty straightforward because the widget is just a background with some information on it. So I'll create the background first. So for this container, I'll use the decoration, and I'll create a box decoration. And in it, I'm creating a shadow. So I want a box shadow, and the box shadow will have an array of box shadow widget, and in this I'll give it a color since I'm creating the shadow. which would be black, of course, but with some opacity, so black 26. And I'll give it an offset. So I'll offset the shadow by -8 pixels on the x-axis and 0 on the y-axis. And then I'll give it a blur radius of 6 pixels. So that's my shadow. And then for my container, for the child, I'm gonna create a stack. And as you know, a stack is like a stack of cards where you put things on top of each other. So that the stack would have children, which is an array of widgets. It will also have a fit, and I'm gonna use the stack fit expand so that it will fill up the space taken, the space within the parent, which in this case will be the container. So at the bottom of the stack, I am going to have a image asset, that is the background image, or in this case the book image. So I'm going to say assets to load this from the asset folder, images book.png. So that is the book asset, and I'm going to give it a color where, as if you remember that the colors were randomly generated. So I have a util, a little utility that I call random color generator. And this have a method called getColor that would generate the color. And then the color blend mode would be hard light. I find that this is the best mode that blends the color that is generated with the white background of the PNG, the book PNG image. And I'm going to say box fit, or fit rather, equal box fit. Cover. So I am going to, so before I run this to shoot, so that it would show up on the simulator, I am going to create a utils folder, and there I'm going to add my random color generator. And I'm just going to copy and paste the code. It's a very simple code. Use the random, a method called getColor, and from that it generates some random numbers for each of the RGB segments, and a random number from 1 to 255, if you know how RGB works. So that's my random color generator. So now I'll just import it from the utils. I'll save it, and then I'm just going to make this optional for now so that it will run. We have a purple container. Let us fix this quickly. So it is actually creating the book, but because it is not constrained to any size, so it is filling up the entire screen. But whenever we add it to the bookshelf and add a size to it, it will fit perfectly into the correct size. So we'll just continue to create this widget. So our first child is the image asset, which represents the book background. And so our second child would be the information on the book. So I'm going to create a method called book info. and this method will have the information that is on the book. So here, book info, and this will return a widget. So I'll now create a column which again has children. I want this column to the main axis alignment. I want it to be on the center. So main axis alignment center. And for the children, I am going to add a few text fields. So for the children, I'm going to create text. I'm just going to say book title for now. I'm going to give it a text style of text style, and the text style would be colors black, straight black. And I want a font weight bold. I want it to be bold. So font weight bold, and a font size of 26. So if I should save that, then I'll have the title right there. So that's the first field. As you can see, each time I save it, the color changes because of the random color generator. So after that, I want also the author. So another text, just gonna copy that, paste that here. I'm gonna call it author, and the text style should be black. Now I want the font weight to be normal, and then the font size to be regular. So I'm just gonna remove the font size. And so font weight normal, text color black. Alright, I'm gonna add some padding. So here I am gonna add this. I'm gonna say all 16. I'm gonna add some space between the two, so size box height, I'm gonna let it be 8 pixels. And here also I'm gonna add this, and I'm gonna give it the same 16 pixel padding. So I have the title and the author. For now, I'm going to give the author font size of 18. So this is our book widget. We'll soon have to change out these titles to represent the information that is passed in this book object. But for now, we're just going to leave it there. And we're going to create now our home page. So back to the UI, I'm going to create a folder called pages, and I'm going to say home page. This is going to be a stateful widget. So I'm going to scaffold out a stateful widget. I'm going to call it home page. import from the material library. I wish not to have any animation mixing, anything pertaining to animation. I clear these up. Just that. So now back to main, I'm gonna let the main render the home page now instead, so I can see what is happening. So that should be blank, and for the home page I'm gonna create a scaffold. I'm gonna give it an app bar, and for this app bar I'll just say title, and I'll give it the title virtual library for now, which should be a text widget, right? And also give it a text style. So for this style, I'll say text style color black, and the font weight make it bold. Right? So for my app bar also, I want for my app bar elevation of 0. I'm going to change the background color to white. And the brightness to light. So now we have a white app bar. So now for the body of my scaffold, I'm gonna say safe area, and for the safe area, that's where I'm gonna create a stack again, since the bookshelf is just the bookshelf image as the background and then the books on top of that. So a stack is perfect for this. I'm gonna expand for the children. For the children, I'm just gonna say background and then UI. So let me create those methods. Background. The background will return, it's going to return a container with an image asset as the child. So image asset, and I'm going to get the shelf image. I'm going to get the shelf image. And I'm also going to say for the image, I'm going to use box fit fill. So now, if I run this, then we have our shelf background. So I'm going to build out the UI now. That is the books on the shelves. So the method build UI, this method now, I'm going to rename this method to build shelf UI, right? And this method will work on a list of bookshelf. Call it shelves. Import from models. Now this method will return a page view. I'll use the builder method, and I'll just pass in the count, which will be shelves, the number of shelves, length, and the builder itself. The builder itself, you get the index, and then I'm going to call another method, books, which will build the book UI based on the book widget. And I'm going to say shelves and get the book on the shelf at this index. The books on that particular shelf rather. And I'm going to pass it. I'm also going to give it a controller, a page view controller, one that I haven't created yet, but I'll just go ahead and create that page view controller. So final controller called page controller, and for the initial page is 0. The default is already 0, so there was no need to set it to 0. But I did it for you guys to see explicitly. So I'm going to now create this books method that receive a list of books and generate the books on the shelf based using the book widget. So I'm gonna create this books method which receive a list of books, call it books, and it will return a container with a grid view. So I'm going to use a grid view to represent the books on the shelf. So I'm gonna say the child of the container should be a grid view, and I'm going to use the count, the grid view count, and I'm going to set certain attributes of this grid view. So I'm gonna add automatic keep alive. I'm gonna set that to true. I also want the physics to be never scrollable. Never scrollable scroll physics, because I do not want this grid view to be scrollable. I'm also gonna give it a padding of 24 pixels. So edge insets all 24. Now these are values that I have tried and tested to see what works well for the books to look well aligned on the shelf. So I'm going to give it also a child aspect ratio of 8 over 9. 9.0. So that's the ratio. And the cross axis count. Cross axis count is going to be 2. So it's 2 books per row. The cross axis spacing is going to be 20. And the main axis spacing is going to be 37. Now guys, I've tried these numbers to find out what works well, so don't think I'm just selecting random numbers. And for the children, I'm gonna create a variable called children, which is a list of widgets. So book. So here I'll create that widget, that list. I'll create a list of widgets and I call it children. Now the reason why I do this, create grid view children and pass in the books. The reason why I do this is so that I can append the add book image to the last element that should be rendered on the shelf, so that add book image is there so that the user can just click it whenever they want to add a new book. So if I am going to create this grid view children method, again this takes a list of books. So I'm gonna create a list of widget. I'm gonna call it children, instantiate it to an empty list, and then what I'm going to do is that I'm going to say for each book, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add it to the list of widgets, but I'm going to add it by creating a book widget. So I'll create a book widget, I'll call it, and I'll pass in the book to the book widget. So I have book widget and I'll pass into the book, but I need to check again the book widget. So yes, it accepts a book from the model book widget because I make it positional. So right, so book. So I loop through the books that are to be added to the shelf and I create a widget for each of them. So now here is where I'm going to add the add book widget, that plus sign that gives you the ability to add a new book to the current shelf. I'm going to say if children, if the length is less than books per shelf. Remember this value from the view model rather, books per shelf, which is 6. I'm going to say if the children, if after creating all the book widgets, if it's less, then I'm going to create another widget. So I'm going to say children, and I'm going to add now to the children another widget, and this widget will be the add book widget that we can click to add a new book. So and I use a hero animation here. So the hero will be the parent widget. So I'll say hero. I'll set the transition on user gesture. I'll set that to true. And for hero animation, you must give it a tag. I give it a tag, add book. This tag will be used by hero on the add book page to determine the animation to be rendered. And for the child, here's where I'll add that add book image, but I'll wrap it within a gesture detector so that it is clickable. So I'll say gesture detector, and on top, for now, I won't give it an action. And for the child, I'll say image asset once more, and I'll get from the images that add book image. So I'll get that image, and I'll also make it to fit using the box fit cover attribute. So there we have it. If the shelf is not full, basically that's what it is saying. If the shelf is not full, then the last widget after the last book widget must be this add book gesture detector, so that we can click to add a new book. So when I go back to my grid, this is where I'll create the children first to be added to my grid view, and then there it will be added. So to test this, I am just going to create a list of bookshelves. Well, I'm just going to call it shelves, and I'm just going to add to this one shelf. Say shelf, give it an ID, the random ID. So I create a shelf, give it a random ID, but I need to add some books to it. So I'm going to create it outside here. I'm just going to say shelf. Then shelf books. And this is supposed to be a list. Well, it should be a method. Books. So inside my init state method, this is where I'll have to initialize the books. So I'll say shelf.books, and I'll just add a single book. Just add a single book. Just give it an ID. Give it a title. Book for now. Give it a author. For now. And then I'll just say shelves Now add that shelf to the shelves. So when I call build shelf UI here, I'll pass in the shelves. So I'm expecting it to render a list of shelves. So we're having an error. Let's see what is the cause. So the cause of the error was that I wasn't returning the children from this grid view children method. Therefore, it was asserting that children cannot be null. So just return the children from this method and you should be good. So now we have our single book on the shelf and also the add book image, so that we can click this image to add a new book. So we can quickly go to the book widget and just render the information. So instead of the text, I'm just gonna say book title, and here book author, and it should quickly change. Yes. So for now we are rendering our book on the shelf, and the basic we are basically finished with this now. It's just to add a few more things and to add a click method that will transition or navigate to the add book screen. But this video is getting a bit long, so I'm gonna stop here, and in the next video we will create the add book screen and we will deal with transitioning from this screen to that screen. So see you guys in the next one, and remember the code is on GitHub, so you can get the assets from there. See you guys later.